Good afternoon, everybody. This is Carol from SEBA Consultancy and Training Services, and this is the Educators Hangout. Welcome back. So we're waiting for a few people to come on board before we begin our broadcast today. We've been off for a little while. We've had a short break. We've been reconfiguring. We've been looking at inviting some new guests onto the show and so on and so forth. So we are excited today. So in the interim, whilst we've not been broadcasting, what's happened is Lagos schools have resumed to some extent or are preparing to resume. And this week, Thursday, we found out that Abuja schools have also been given permission to resume. Now, one of the things I want to discuss with us today is the communication and the confusion that has been caused as a result of not getting the information on time. I've had so many calls as a consultant from so many of my clients saying, are we resuming? Are we not resuming? What are the guidelines? Where can we get the guidelines? Can we open now? Since the government has said we can open, can we just go open on Monday? No, you know that. In other words, there was a lack of communication and there's a lack of information coming from places like the ministry, the DQA, and so on. So today I want to talk about some of the challenges that schools are facing, teachers are facing, parents are facing, but also on a positive note, I would also like to have a discussion about what are you taking away from COVID-19, the COVID-19 lockdown. What are we taking away from it as educators? What have we learned during this season? And what are we going to be taking forward as schools resume? So the first thing I'd like to do is introduce my co-host, Stella Adewalure. She's on her phone. She's not listening. So Stella, would you like to say hi?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. It's good to be back here live and direct on Facebook. How are you all doing? We've missed you, actually. We've missed you so much.
So Stella,
it's good to have you all on board.
How have you been, and how have you been spending your time during the COVID season?
Well, I think majorly what I've been doing is personal development and professional development. I'm trying to see myself in another 5 years. So I've been working towards that, basically.
Awesome. Good. And we have another guest all the way from Lagos joining us. Wumi, I'm not even going to try and say your surname. I nickname you Cece. So how are you, my love? And how is Lagos?
Can
you hear us, Mel?
I'm fine. Lagos is fine. We are coping. We are getting used.
We're having a little few
I can hear you.
Our network, but back to you. Can you hear us well?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Wumi. We can hear you now.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Okay.
Please
so Lagos is fine. Lagos is fine.
Good.
Okay, Lagos is fine. We are getting used to the new normal, like schools are beginning to resume, but public schools, we are still trying. So let's be hopeful and see how things go.
So that's one of the I mean, to the best of my knowledge, Wumi, schools have been told they can
network is really
in Lagos.
bad.
Is that right? Okay.
Hello, Stella. What did you say? But I can hear Miss Carol.
I said.
Okay. The network.
I can hear you.
Okay. So Wumi, I was saying that schools have been, to the best of my knowledge, schools have been told that they can resume in Lagos, right?
Yeah.
Subject
private
to the appropriate,
schools. Yeah.
Oh, it's just private schools. So public schools have not been given permission to open.
Yeah. The only classes that have resumed, public school, the classes that have resumed is JSS 3 and SS2. That's JSS3 as a junior secondary class 3 and the senior secondary class 2. The JSS3 resumed and SS2 resumed 21st of September. The JSS3 were preparing for their exams, which is already ongoing now. I think they're going to finish by on the 12th. Then the SS2 resumed so that they can have some classes and transition into the senior secondary 3, which is the final class of secondary school. So those are the two
Right.
classes resumed in public school. Private schools were allowed to, as long as they obey all COVID-19 guidelines that government put out, they were allowed to resume, except the primary classes, that's the nursery classes, were not
Sure.
allowed to resume.
Sure.
So, but public primary schools have not resumed.
Okay, so let me ask you this question then, because one of the I
Okay.
recently was invited onto Arise TV News, and of course, you know, the challenges, the questions that I was being asked, you know, what do I think about schools resuming, and it's a very big question. So let me put it over to you as a teacher in a public school, Wumi. What are your thoughts on resumption? How do you feel about schools resuming at this time?
Well, I'll first like to say that nobody was prepared for COVID-19. The government, no teachers, no parents, or children, nobody was prepared. So initially, it was confusion. Everybody was confused. But kudos to Lagos State government, you know, to some extent, they've been able to, you know, they kept the information lines on, so everyone was carried along. Teachers were trained. Some trainings I benefited from. Government actually, there's some training on post COVID-19, what we should expect, how we should manage classes. Government did that, and teachers benefited from it. So, is as long as schools are able to keep up to, you know, to follow the guidelines, then they are free to resume. But my fear is that we have the capacity to monitor all the schools. Talking about private schools now because schools have not resumed yet. Does government have the capacity to monitor all these schools and make sure that they keep up to the guidelines that has been put out there? We don't really know much about this virus and how it affects children. Believe so, because So we don't know. We don't know. The people are talking about wave 2 coming up, and you know, so the fear is still out there. We don't know what to expect. So, and just as a teacher, I do hope that schools will keep the guidelines, washing of hands, using of masks, social distancing, everything that they're supposed to do. God forbid we have an outbreak again, and then this is children this time. God forbid. Only God knows what will happen. We really don't want.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Wumi. Stella, schools in Abuja have not yet started. I think the Thursday they announced that schools could open, but even there has been some confusion. Can you comment on that, please?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Since in September, we all heard over the news that Lagos was going back to school, and everybody was hoping that Abuja would say something. But it's quite unfortunate that the information we see, the kind of information that flies on the internet about Abuja's resumption, I would say so, it's fake, or not until Thursday. There were no proper dissemination of information. We
Okay.
Okay, I'm back, right?
Yeah.
So I can say that what we've been using in Abuja is hearsay, because we could not actually pinpoint where this information emerges from. There was a time there was a timetable going rounds on the internet that the Ministry of Education says schools should go back. Schools will go back on September 21st. Schools will not go back. About information in Abuja, it's unfortunate. We don't have the right information, and we don't know who to trust. We don't know the source this information emerges from, and we don't know if they are genuine or not. Because on a particular platform I belong to, when the news started making rounds on Thursday that we were going to we will resume on the 12th of October, the one I saw as a date actually, but there was no signature on it. There was even a picture I saw. Someone held the notice for school resumption, and I'm like, okay, what is all this? Can't we just get a particular information that we trust the source and we are sure we are going back to school? I was in a school on Friday. The school is just getting ready to put those guidelines in place, wash and basin and all that. And I asked the school owner, are you sure you are going to resume on 12th? She said, no, Stella, I can't resume on the 12th. I asked the school owner, have your school been inspected? She said, no, DQA has not visited our school. So, ma'am, it's quite unfortunate here in Abuja that we really don't have the right information. We hear so many things at the same time.
But I'd like to just kind of troubleshoot a little bit, because there are some schools, as we know, Stella, you and I are working with them, that have been preparing for resumption for weeks now.
Yes.
Even even before the government announced that SS3 and JS3 could come back, there were private schools that were actually already getting their schools ready. Even before the guidelines came up, they were buying sanitizers, they were buying thermometers, they were buying PPE, and so on and so forth. So, whilst I understand that there has been lack of information coming out from the various ministries, I think, as Wumi said, Lagos State is actually leading the way and leading by example, and I'll come back to that shortly. But I think one of the issues that I have is it all down to the government, or does some of it lie in our own hands? As in, we should be the ones, or school owners should be the ones that are being proactive. Are we simply being passive and not being proactive because we're not sure, we don't want to spend the little money that we have left on putting things into place if schools are not actually going to resume? Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? And then the other thing I wanted to come back to Wumi on as well, because we can focus on all the problems. We can talk about the fact that, because one of the things that impressed me about what you just said, Wumi, is that the Lagos State has done so much for the public sector by way of training, by way of giving out information, and giving you as teachers access to those trainings in preparation for resumption. We've had several schools that we have met with, including public schools, where that information just hasn't come. And I, really, when you're thinking that Abuja is supposed to be the center of governance, I think that's the real challenge that some of the school owners and school leaders have been having, this lack of information. And I've actually had one school leader that, as you said, she has a school in Lagos and she has a school in Abuja, and she's noticed there's a distinct lack of information coming out of Abuja. But let's turn the conversation slightly, because we're only doing we're having a very short session today. We're just doing half an hour, so I don't want to waste too much time moaning and complaining. Wumi, what I would like to ask you is, you said that you've taken some time, you've done some training. What is something positive that you're taking out of this COVID era that you're now taking forward into your school? What are the things that are positives?
Thank you, Mom. First, one major lesson for everybody, not only for teachers, is that nothing is, as in anything can change at any time. Change is permanent, and we must be prepared. I wish we had had some plans in place. Nobody knew COVID was going to happen, but if we had had some plans in place, can you still hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Hello.
we can. We can hear you clearly, Wumi. Go
Hello.
on.
Okay.
Hello, we can hear
I'm so
you.
sorry. The line. Okay. If has okay, I can hear you now. If we had some plans in place before, we wouldn't be having this problem. So now that we have seen COVID and we've seen what COVID can do to us, so let's all bear in mind that change is something that is continuous, it will always happen. And then we should be prepared to adapt to change. We shouldn't see change as a bad thing. COVID is not really a good thing here. I won't talk about the disease and the virus, but then it has brought in some new inventions, innovations around us. We are doing things differently now. And that's really important. That's the essence of life. To continue to move on, transform, to continue to do things, get new ways to do things, and not feel as if that, okay, if it not feel like change is something bad, or change is something. I can't see anybody, but can you hear
Okay,
me?
we're back.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So it's really important that we we continue to train our teachers. We continue to embrace innovation, and not see it as a bad thing, really. And that's the most important lesson I've taken from COVID.
Absolutely, absolutely, and as I've said many times on the Educators Hangout, one of the greatest things that I suppose has happened to us is that we've come closer to each other. The world has suddenly become very smaller. So I wouldn't have met I wouldn't have met Wumi if it had not been
Exactly.
for COVID. You know, we wouldn't have connected. And there's so many people that I've now connected with
Yes.
as a result of COVID. You know, there's people that I'm
Mm,
coaching that I would never have had
mhm.
the opportunity to coach. There's people I'm training as a result of
Opportunity.
the work that we've been
Exactly.
doing online,
Exactly.
you know. And I'm sure you
Mm,
yourself have met people online as a result of this. So, you know, it kind of shows
exactly.
us that we really do need to move into the 21st century.
Simple.
We
Exactly.
really do. Yeah. And you know, I think my again, let's have that conversation. We're moving into the 21st century. Um, what does that look like, Stella? What skills do you feel that teachers and therefore our pupils will need for the 21st century? Our 21st century learners, what do they need from us as teachers?
Okay. As teachers, learners, they need a lot of skills.
Yeah,
And I would like to say that in the hierarchy of those skills, knowledge is actually the least.
right.
How do I mean? Knowledge is the least because if you have all the knowledge up here and you can't adapt the knowledge and you can't apply the knowledge is as good as being useless.
Mm,
So we will need communication, which we've been doing, and I think we need to improve on
Mhm,
that.
mhm.
We need collaboration. We need to start working together. COVID has shown us that nobody is
absolutely.
an island of knowledge. You need to ask questions. You need to seek for
Absolutely.
advice, especially from
Absolutely.
people that have gone ahead of you in the field. You know, we need to be creative in our classrooms, even with our curriculum. If there will be revision of curriculum in any time soon, which I'm hoping we should start looking in the direction, I think we need to be creative with our content, the content of our curriculum. We should be able to create a curriculum that will give teachers the chance to go wide and wild, you know? And we need to be
Hmm.
thinkers. We need to start producing children that can think on their feet. But mom, I used to stop here
Mhm,
severally.
mhm.
And where I stop is it's easy for us to say teachers should give these skills. to the learners. The question I used to ask our teachers is that, do we have these skills in us? You cannot give what you don't have. We need to first of all imbibe these skills in us as teachers. These skills need to be part of what we do daily before we can actually go into the classroom, and these skills will now come from us to our learners. So for time, the basic ones are the forces of learning.
Wumi, so you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, Stella. I just wanted to add something to what Stella has said. The first thing she said is the major problem we have with our education, that we just pour out knowledge, we just teach, and our students continue to cram. And that's a problem that we've always had. Now we need to move away from that, like Stella has said. We need to begin to find new ways to do things. And then COVID has created that opportunity for us. I for one never knew about Google Classroom. I didn't know about Google Classroom. I didn't know about a lot of online and virtual teaching. But then, if you are somebody that is a lifelong learner, like I always say, when change comes, you embrace it. You learn new skills. You think about ways you can make your class interactive, because the goal is actually to make sure that your students can apply the knowledge. So you continue to improve PG so that your students get the best out of you. You as teachers, and I'm sorry, I just have to say this about public school teachers, we are so relaxed because we feel, oh, nobody can send us, we can't be sacked, we can't, there are really no strict, you understand, in the public sector, as in for teachers. So many of us are relaxed, and that's not fair on the children, because children tomorrow are our products. They are going to talk about us, and whatever they become is what we give to them that is really going to. We keep complaining all the time, but then what do we actually do in our own little space to make things better? And I think that's where we should all focus as teachers now. That's where we should all focus. Thank you. Stella wants to say something.
Stella, go ahead.
Okay, I think, Wumi, you're perfectly right. Even if nobody will check us as teachers, and nobody can sack us because we are in the we are in the state schools. This person said work culture. You don't need anybody. If you are a passionate teacher, you actually don't need anybody to push you. You don't need anyone to push you. That's just my comment. If you are passionate, your passion will push you to do the right thing at the right time. Thank you.
And so I'd like to come in here again, because again, this is a conversation that I think we've had on the Educators Hangout before, which it all comes down to, where do we need to start if we're going to change the system, and I really, the problem is so wide and so vast. We have individuals in the public sector like yourself who are well-trained, Wumi, well-trained, very passionate, love your children, and you are the kind of person and people like you will go far, because you will always be a lifelong learner. You will always have a positive attitude towards your teachers, and you will make a difference in a child's life. And I think that's what we forget as educators, that actually it's not about us, it's not about our salary, it's not about our pension, it's not about whether we've got a really great school or with poor infrastructure, or a bad school with poor infrastructures. Actually, it's about giving the best opportunities that we can to our students. And one of the conversations that we had recently in one of our trainings was, I asked everybody to close their eyes. I asked everyone to close their eyes, and I said, I want you to think of that teacher. We can all remember that one teacher that had a fantastic impact on our lives, there may have been more than one if you're very lucky, but there's always one teacher who has had a tremendous impact on our lives. And it's actually changed the course of our lives. And I think if educators in general, and including school owners, whether they're educators or not, if they understand that we can literally, in one sentence, change the course of life for an individual child by what comes out of our mouths, by the way we treat
Mm-hmm.
them, by the way that we carry ourselves. We can be that role model. We can be that somebody that will change the course of a child's life. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of
Mhm.
the things that since I've been in this country, that's been one of the things that has saddened me so deeply. Not to say that we don't have passionate teachers in the UK, or that we lack passionate teachers in the UK, but the vast majority of people have come into the profession for the right reasons. Whereas within the education sector, and Stella experienced that when she was when she was doing her jam, she didn't get a score that was high enough, and therefore was pushed into the College of Education. And instead of it being something that is up here, we see education and educators as down here in society, in this
Exactly.
society. And actually, we're changing the course of destinies. And I think if there's one thing that has come out of this season is that parents have become more aware of the
Yeah.
great stuff that teachers and the educators have done and are
Mm-hmm.
continuing to do. Wumi, I'm going to give the floor to you for our um, closing statement. We've got about 4 minutes left. Wumi, Stella, and then we'll close. Wumi, what are your closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts would be to teachers. Teachers, we can do this together. These children are the future of this country, and if we can put in our best. Sometimes we always feel as if, what are we going to get from it? It's not about us, it's about the children. If we can put our best to our students, there is always something positive that comes out of it. Just put in your best. You don't have to be the best. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
resources online now. There's so many things you can do. I run a community for teachers that is free, and we do trainings, we have talks and all of that. So you can find communities like that. I remember something that one of the guests at a program I attended, and it stuck with me. She said teachers were not made to work alone. That is a wrong concept. Teachers were made to collaborate. That's
Yeah.
the most effective way for us to produce results. We need to collaborate. It stuck with me, and I'm like, yeah, that's true. Because if I'm school, an English is another English teacher, I can't know everything. But if I'm able
Mm-hmm.
to collaborate with colleagues, even those who are not in my field, I could pick one or two things from them and make my class better. And it's something that has stuck with me. So always look for communities where there are like minds, even though they are not in your field. You can imagine what I've learned from science student, and I'm not even a science student. Recently, I've learned so much. So collaborate. Yeah, I'm saying that already. Collaboration. You don't have to be the best. Just find a community of teachers or people with like minds that are thinking in the direction you're thinking, and then you're good.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Stella, closing thoughts, please.
Well, Wumi, thank you for your thoughts, and I think I will talk. I'll shift to school owners and leaders in the educational system. My closing remark is that school owners, please make the school a home for your teachers, not a workplace.
Mm.
If you make that environment a home for them, they will work. And to our school leaders, please collaborate with the teachers under you. Give them the support you can. Be on top of your game. Pull them up, carry them along, encourage them. And to our policymakers, please let's be forward thinking so that we don't keep dragging this sector back. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. Wumi, thank you for your contributions. Stella, thank you as always for your contributions. And
Thank you, ma'am.
From me, I think the significant points are that we need to collaborate. I mean, the world has become a much smaller place. The world has become um, if we stay in our box and if we keep doing the things that we've always done, then we will always get the same outcomes. We need to move forward.
Mm.
We need to drive standards upwards, and we really do need to work together for the betterment of these children and for the betterment, absolutely, for the betterment of Nigeria as a whole. Nigeria has become my home. It's become part of me. It's in my blood. It's in my DNA. And I still would love to believe that the Nigeria
And
that we
we
know,
love you.
okay, and we love you too, Cece. I would love to believe that we can change the story of Nigeria and we can do it through the power of education. But it all starts with you. So if you're an
Yeah.
educator and you are watching the Educators Hangout, please join us every week on Saturday at 4 p.m. The show is now just for 30 minutes. We're trying to encourage it to be a short, sharp discussion about the matters at hand. So, from my co-host Stella and from our guest Wumi today, we want to give you a big shout out, and really, we are praying for you for resumption. We pray that no child is left behind. We pray that no child will be infected or affected by COVID
Amen.
19, and that actually this is going to be a great and joyous season. For those states that are still waiting to go back and to resume, I am believing that by the end of October, all schools would have resumed. Perhaps the early years is the only section that they might still have some reservations on. But I'd like to, in particular, commend those that are working in our public sector where the challenges are greater. I heard of one school that had recently been inspected, and there was just one bucket to wash hands, and it didn't even have a tap. Um, we're not going to name names. We're not going to use to use the restroom. The children have to go and collect their own water to flush the toilet, and yet the DQA and the ministry are coming down hard on private schools that are putting all those resources in place. Instead of focusing on that, they really need to get their own house in order, so to speak. So anybody that can come together to help and support a local public school, please do so. If you've got the finances, if you've got the resources, let's help our people, our teachers and our children in the public sector. Let's come together and make a difference. My name is Carol Barlow from SIBA Consultancy and Training Services. This is the Educators Hangout. Please, if you're listening live or if you're listening to the broadcast afterwards, we would love your comments. We'd love your feedback. Stella is putting up her finger, which means she's got one last thing to say. Go on, Stella.
Actually, it's not no, it's a question on the screen.
Okay.
Someone is asking us if educational businesses targeting schools in the Lagos area can still run marketing campaigns this year.
I'm guessing that they can. There's nothing stopping them. I mean,
Exactly.
schools are resuming. Schools are getting back to their new norm. And I don't think there's anything wrong with running marketing campaigns. We're all in business.
Yeah.
And we're all doing our own thing but you see, one thing we've learned in this COVID season is knocking on doors and gates of schools is not necessarily the way to go now. We have got the internet and we can get into school spaces using social media. So we're leaving you with that. We'd like to say a big thank you to those of you that are listening live. Big thank you to those of you that are listening after the broadcast has been broadcast. Please add your comments and join us next week. Share, like, comment, and let us know that you love us. All right, take care and God bless.
Thank you.